warning. This content may be disturbing. During elementary school, there was a boy named Kyle Doobie who was a few grades ahead of me. We didn't interact much, but he had a habit of yanking my pigtails hard, pretending I was a horse he could ride. He also carried knives and would threaten classmates when angry. Once, he pulled a knife on a girl behind the school. Nothing was ever done about it. Our small school wasn't strict with discipline. His behavior made me and others uneasy. Eventually, he moved away, and we didn't hear from him for years until he appeared in the news for murder. Kyle had created a fake online profile to lure a 15-year-old girl, Nicole Cable, from her home. He kidnapped her, intending to stage a heroic rescue. But when he realized she was dead, he dumped her body in the woods. She was found a week later. Hearing the news made me physically sick, knowing someone who once tormented me was capable of such violence. His trial was set to begin soon after. Years earlier, in another town, I had a friend named Patrick Silopak. He seemed kind and funny, but we lost touch when I moved. Years later, I learned he had murdered a couple. Melissa Barrels, who was pregnant, and her husband Scott. Patrick had befriended Melissa, then attacked her with a gun before strangling her. When Scott came home, he was ambushed and tortured for hours before dying. Patrick and his girlfriend fled, but were later caught after another murder. Both were sentenced to life without parole. In yet another place I lived, a high school classmate, Skylar, had a violent streak. One summer, his younger brother Terry went missing. Skylar posted online asking for help, but he was later arrested when Terry's body was found buried behind their house. Skylar claimed it was an accident during roughhousing, but his changing stories raised suspicion. He was convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to juvenile detention. Later, while running a haunted attraction, I met an actor who stood out for his terrifying performance. He joked about avoiding murder charges, and I planned to hire him, but when I called, an older man answered and said he was unavailable. Months later, I stumbled upon a news article. The same man had shot his mother and sister, then calmly described the killings in a chilling 911 call. These encounters left me unsettled, realizing how close I had been to people capable of horrific acts. Some things stay with you long after they happen. The older man on the phone had sounded weary, almost resigned, when he told me the actor wouldn't be returning my call. At the time, I assumed it was just a scheduling conflict. Maybe he'd found another job. But when I saw the news article months later, everything clicked into place with a sickening clarity. The 911 recording was the worst part. His voice was flat, detached, as if he were describing something mundane instead of admitting to murder. I guess I'm pretty evil, whatever. The casualness of it made my skin crawl. I couldn't stop thinking about how close he had been to working in our haunted house, surrounded by people, feeding off the fear we manufactured for entertainment. Would he have snapped there instead? Would someone else have become his victim? It's strange how violence touches lives in unexpected ways. A boy who pulled my hair became a killer. A childhood friend turned out to be a monster. A talented actor was capable of unspeakable cruelty. These weren't just headlines to me. They were people I had known, however briefly. I still wonder about the ones who slipped through the cracks, the ones who never made the news. How many others walk among us, hiding their darkness behind ordinary faces? The thought lingers, unwelcome but impossible to shake. Maybe that's the most unsettling part of all. Realizing that evil doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it's just a quiet presence, waiting for the right moment to show its teeth. The weight of these encounters never fully leaves you. It lingers in the quiet moments when you're alone with your thoughts, or when a familiar name flashes across a news headline. You start noticing patterns, small red flags that seem obvious in hindsight. the way someone's eyes would go flat when they got angry, the jokes that always carried a little too much edge, the unsettling intensity behind what should have been harmless quirks. I think about the haunted house actor often. His audition was flawless. He had this uncanny ability to channel real menace. At the time, I mistook it for a skill. Now, I wonder if we were all just seeing what he wanted us to see, a performance that mirrored something much darker beneath the surface. The scariest monsters aren't the ones in masks. They're the ones who learn to wear a smile like armor. And then there's the guilt, not for anything I did, but for the questions I can't stop asking myself. Could I have noticed something? Said something? Would it have made a difference? Probably not. But that doesn't stop the mind from picking at the wound. The truth is, most people move through life never brushing up against this kind of darkness. But for those of us who have, it changes the way you see the world. You learn to trust your gut when something feels off. You pay attention to the quiet kid in the back of the room, the coworker whose anger simmers a little too close to the surface, not because you're paranoid, but because you know now, really know, that the unthinkable is always possible. It's a heavy thing to carry, but you carry it anyway, and maybe in some small way, that's the point. To remember that behind every headline, every true crime documentary, there are real lives tangled in the aftermath. People like me who still flinch when they hear a certain name. People like you, reading this now, wondering how close you've come to evil without ever realizing it. The world isn't safe, but we keep moving through it, eyes open, hearts guarded, because what else is there to do? The unsettling truth is that we all walk past monsters every day without knowing it. The barista who hands you coffee with a friendly smile, the neighbor who waves as you pass, any one of them could be hiding something unspeakable behind that ordinary facade. You start to see potential darkness everywhere, not because you want to, but because experience has burned that awareness into you. I still remember the way Kyle laughed when he yanked my hair, like it was just a game. That same laugh probably echoed when he lured Nicole to her death. Patrick had a way of making people feel special, like they were the only one in the room. He used that charm to gain trust before destroying lives. The haunted house actor? He made fear into art, blurring the line between performance and reality until the distinction didn't matter anymore. Sometimes I wonder if we're all just one bad day away from becoming the villain in someone else's story. Maybe that's why these memories cling like shadows. They force us to confront how fragile the boundary is between normal and monstrous. But here's the thing, for every Kyle, every Patrick, there are countless others who choose kindness even when life gives them every reason not to. The teacher who stayed late to help a struggling student, the stranger who returned a lost wallet, the friend who listened without judgment when the world felt too heavy. So yes, I carry these stories with me, not just as warnings, but as reminders. Reminders to trust my instincts when something feels wrong. Reminders to look closer when someone's smile doesn't reach their eyes. But also reminders that goodness exists, stubborn and quiet, in the most ordinary moments. The darkness is real, but so is the light, and that's what makes it worth getting up every morning, even when the weight of what you know feels like too much. You keep going, you pay attention, and most of all, you refuse to let the monsters win by making you forget that most people are just people. Flawed, complicated, and capable of extraordinary kindness, even in a world that doesn't always deserve it. There's a peculiar duality to human nature that becomes impossible to ignore once you've seen its darkest corners. The same hands that can comfort a crying child are capable of unspeakable violence. The mind that creates beautiful art can also devise horrific cruelty. This knowledge changes you, not into someone perpetually afraid, but into someone acutely aware of how thin the veneer of civilization really is. I've learned to watch for the small things, the micro-expert. Expressions that flicker across faces too quickly for most to notice. The subtle shifts in body language when certain topics arise. The carefully constructed masks people wear to appear normal. These observations aren't paranoia. They're the survival instincts of someone who's seen what happens when warning signs go unheeded. Yet, despite everything, I refuse to become cynical. For every predator who walks among us, there are dozens of ordinary heroes. The nurse working a double shift, the volunteer at the animal shelter, the teenager who stands up to a bully. The world isn't divided into monsters and saints. We all contain both potentialities, and our choices in each moment determine which one wins out. Perhaps that's the most valuable lesson these experiences have taught me. Evil isn't some external force that possesses people. It's a series of choices, small at first, that gradually erode empathy until the unthinkable becomes possible. By the same token, goodness isn't passive. It's the daily decision to extend kindness, even when it's difficult, to speak up when it would be easier to stay silent. So I remain watchful but not fearful, cautious but not closed off. The memories still surface at unexpected moments. When I pass a playground and hear children's laughter. When I smell the crisp autumn air that always marked the start of haunted house season. When I see a news alert about another tragedy. But they don't control me. Instead, they've become part of how I navigate the world, with eyes wide open, both its darkness and its light, determined to recognize the former without ever losing sight of the latter. The paradox of these experiences is that while they make you more wary, they also make you more human. You develop a sixth sense for the fractures in people's facades, the too long pause before answering a simple question, the nervous laugh that doesn't match the eyes, the way someone's fingers might twitch when recalling certain memories. These become tells in a game no one wants to play, yet we're all unwitting participants. I've come to realize that the most dangerous people aren't the ones who seem obviously unhinged, but those who've mastered the art of blending in. They're the ones who know exactly how to mirror normalcy, who can weaponize charm and feigned vulnerability to disarm suspicion. The haunted house actor didn't seem like a killer. He seemed like the perfect hire. Patrick wasn't some lurking predator. He was the funny, charismatic friend everyone wanted around. That's what makes it all so unsettling. The line between us and them isn't as clear as we'd like to believe. Yet in this awareness, there's also a strange kind of power. You learn to trust the hairs standing up on the back of your neck, the gut feeling that whispers, something isn't right here. You become better at setting boundaries, at recognizing when someone's behavior isn't just eccentricity, but something more troubling. And perhaps most importantly, why? You understand that survival isn't just about physical safety. It's about protecting your peace, your sanity, your ability to keep believing in good despite knowing how deep the darkness runs. So I move through life differently now. I don't assume the worst in people, but I don't assume innocence either. I've seen how quickly the mask can slip, how easily a seemingly stable person can tip into something monstrous. But I've also seen ordinary people perform extraordinary acts of compassion, often when no one is watching. That balance between caution and hope, between realism and optimism, is the only way forward. The world is neither as safe as we wish it were, nor as dangerous as we fear. It simply is what it is. A place where light and shadow constantly dance, where every person you meet contains multitudes, some beautiful, some terrible. All we can do is stay alert, stay kind, and refuse to let the darkness convince us that it's all there is. Because for every nightmare I've witnessed, I've also seen moments of breathtaking humanity. And that's what makes the rest of it bearable. There's an uncomfortable wisdom that comes from these encounters, a visceral understanding that safety is an illusion we collectively agree to maintain. We go about our days assuming the people around us share the same fundamental boundaries, the same innate resistance to cruelty. But the hard truth is that morality isn't universal. It's a choice, and not everyone makes the same one. I've developed what I call polite vigilance, the art of being observant without being obvious, of noting exits and potential weapons in any room while still engaging in normal conversation. It's not fear exactly, more like the awareness a firefighter has of flammable materials in their environment. You don't dwell on it, but you can't unsee it either. What's perhaps most disturbing is recognizing how many warning signs we collectively ignore because they disrupt the social contract. The coworker who laughs a little too long at others' discomfort. The family member whose jokes always carry a sting of truth. The friend who seems to enjoy stories of suffering a bit too much. We write these off as quirks until the day we can't anymore. Yet despite it all, I refuse to live in perpetual suspicion. The world needs our trust, even as it sometimes betrays it. The alternative, seeing every stranger as a potential threat, every kindness as manipulation, is its own kind of violence against the soul. So I walk the line, carrying both knowledge and hope, remembering that for every predator who exploited trust, there are countless others who honored it. In the end, these experiences didn't make me fearful. They made me awake. And there's power in that wakefulness. The power to intervene when something feels off. The power to trust your instincts when they scream at you. The power to recognize darkness without letting it extinguish your light. That's the fragile, necessary balance we all must strike in a world where monsters are real, but so are heroes, often in the same unexpected people. The stories we carry of near misses and chilling revelations aren't meant to paralyze us with fear, but to sharpen our discernment. They remind us that vigilance and compassion can coexist, that we can acknowledge darkness without surrendering to it. In the end, what matters isn't that we've encountered monsters, but that we've survived them with our humanity intact, still willing to trust where it's earned, still able to recognize light, even after staring too long into the shadows. That resilience, that stubborn hope, is the truest protection we have.